Hello wonderful humans, it's me again, and today I have a cup of tea and I am ready to talk more about the Dragon Reborn. Today I'm going to be talking about chapters 14 through to 20, and then after this I'm going to be filming the next video so that I can get it out on time, because I've been struggling a little bit with that at the moment. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about that at the end, I don't know. Where was I? This has been really great. This is a good section of the book. We learn a lot about different characters, and I'm really enjoying, as I've said, I'm loving the book, but I'm enjoying getting into the perspectives of Perrin and Egwene so far, and today a little bit of Matt as well. And I think this is it's a fantastic way. Robert Jordan did a brilliant job of introducing the different point of views at different times, even though we've got glimpses of through these characters' eyes, or two of them earlier. I think it was very well done that now we're focusing on them, especially given the similarities between Perrin and Egwene and their journey in some ways. And Matt, I'm just really happy to be seeing a little bit of Matt. So I'm gonna have a sip of my tea and then I'm gonna get started. Okay, so chapter 14, the bite of the Thorns. So I didn't expect here for Swan to ask them to hunt the Black Aja. I think I thought it would be about Matt, but she brushed that off really quickly, still not filling them in on any more than absolutely necessary. It's just that she's finding it's necessary to tell them more information now. So yes, she is telling them more. She's being more open than maybe Verin and Moraine have been with these two, or with any of them, to be perfectly honest. But she's also still withholding quite a bit, but she's only telling them what's absolutely necessary. I think yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's quite smart really having them punished severely and indefinitely, so they look out of favour. That will help throw off some people as to what they're doing. It won't work with everyone though. I'd say it will also keep them both so busy with a purpose, which is really important for these two characters. They need purpose, all of them. They're so busy that they won't be looking for adventures elsewhere. So they won't just disappear again for no reason like they did in the last book. They'll be so busy, they'll have a purpose, and Swan will know where they are. And I really don't think she would want to lose some of the most powerful potential Aes Sedai that they've seen for a very long time. So she's keeping them busy under her wing, reporting to her, hopefully gaining some of their trust by giving them some trust and winning them to her side, given as we go through we see that becomes more and more necessary. I think she needs people on her side. There's not a lot of people she can fully trust, which I think I'll get into in a moment. I think this could also help, it could also help teach them a little bit about how to act a part, wear a mask and so on, so that they're a little bit more on guard, a little bit more aware of their actions, and that they're not quite so naive. I think that's a really big thing for them to learn, and I can imagine Swan, Verin, Moraine all think that they could do with a little bit of growth and a little less naivety. They're well and truly being sucked into the secret political world of the Tower. Will Leanne or Verin, or both, prove to be suspicious in this? Swan lets something slip that suggests maybe she's not as trustful as Verin and Moraine as she would like to be, or as we may have thought. But she hasn't said anything about Leanne, and I think that's telling in a different way. I don't know what I think about that. It makes me suspicious. I mean, as you'll see, I'm very suspicious of everyone. If you haven't been watching the rest of my videos, you know I suspect everyone of everything. A short but important moment with Nynaeve trying to protect Egwene and when reminding Nynaeve she's a grown woman, so stop treating her like a child. I really do think this is going to prove to be important to both their characters and especially how they handle it. I think we're going to see this as this constant thing. Nynaeve, because of her role of wisdom, is going to have a lot of trouble letting go her role of caretaker, caregiver. She only joined this adventure, this journey in the first place, because she felt she needed to look after these other four. It wasn't because she wanted to, although maybe there was an inkling maybe she did want to a degree that we don't see. But I think she's going to take a lot to start viewing them as independent people and not as her responsibility. And Egwene is going to push back on that because she's rich. She's at that stage where she's trying to find out who she is. I mean, she's not quite 18. She was 16 in the first book, so she must be around 17-ish now. She's going to be pushing a lot, especially against authority figures, especially against someone who she sees treating her like a child and not giving her respect. And in the world that they're in now, they are more equal than they were back in the village. And I think Egwene's going to push back against that quite a bit. So will Elaine suspect something is the next question, or Gallard or Gwyn? Will it cause distance between Elaine and Egwene? I hope they learn to keep the secret. They need to learn when to keep their mouths shut. And hopefully this will help Nynaeve learn to control her temper a little bit as well, given the danger of the situation. I think that could be really, really valuable. But it's a huge part of Nynaeve's character, that temper, and I'd say it'll be a part of her character arc. It's a given, but it's going to take some time. I apologise about the tea. I've been a little bit unwell for the last couple of days, so I'm just trying to keep hydrated and keep my throat from causing me to cough constantly. I filmed this exact same video yesterday, and ended up having to refilm it today because I couldn't follow my train of thought watching it back. So you wouldn't have had any chance of following my train of thought. And also I sounded really not great. So excuse the tea. I'll stop and pause and drink as I go. But chapter 15, The Grey Man. An intro to the soulless here. What Moraine was worried about may appear in their camp. And this was a really great thing. I think in the last video, I can't remember whether I did or not. In the last video, I think I mentioned that Robert Jordan has this thing where he mentions something and then it happens almost immediately afterwards, and it works because of the breadth of the world and the things that are going on. But I think this was a better way of doing that, where Moraine was talking about it with Perrin and Min and whoever else she was talking to about it, and then we see the thing she fears happen elsewhere. And I've noticed that that's sort of, the more they're branching out and doing different things, this is really great because we're hearing about it from someone else, and it feels less coincidental. Well, it's still coincidental. It feels less convenient. And I love that we've got a little bit more information than these characters. So Egwene and Nynaeve have no idea what this thing is until they get that information, or some of that information. And I think that it was really well done. Anyway, I don't need to say anything more about that. I just think it was really, really well done of Robert Jordan to be able to do that and not make it appear too convenient. I really do wish with this chapter particularly, a lot of chapters I wish that we were seeing it from Nynaeve's perspective, but this chapter in particular, I would have really liked to see it from her perspective instead of Egwene's. I get that that's not what's going on at the moment. We're not in the space to be seeing it from her perspective, although I'd like to. But I do really feel that because of Egwene's narrowed focus, after the events of the Great Hunt that we're missing a lot more. I think we always miss a lot when we're in one character's perspective for a really lengthy period of time. But I think because of Egwene's fears and her PTSD and trauma that she's gone through and the after effects of all that, that we're seeing a narrower focus of things, and we're not really, Egwene isn't noticing the full picture, even more so than normal, and so we're seeing even less. So I think it would have been really cool to see through Nynaeve's eyes, given Nynaeve has that tracker ability that we saw in the Eye of the World, and she notices things that maybe other people miss. And I think I would have liked to have seen that. Anyway, Nynaeve's talent with working out how to use Sadia after seeing others do it once is definitely going to come in handy. I can see that coming up again and again in a really good, useful way. And I like that that seed has been planted now, so that when she does it later, it won't come as a surprise or as that's convenient kind of thing. I really like that. I think he's I'm seeing a lot of growth even across the books in Robert Jordan's writing style, and I'm enjoying that side of things as well. I mean, I did study literature at university, and I have read a lot of fantasy books, and I'm just really loving how he uses his writing craft in a way, like it's very, very well done. And it's getting better all the time. So I'm looking forward to seeing the growth in his writing as well, as far as I read through. So continuing, I keep getting off topic, I'm sorry. After seeing also her ability to observe and learn from how the others are behaving is really going to be beneficial as well. She's going to adapt a lot quicker, I think, and learn when to step back, when to jump forward, like move forward, and all those kind of things, if she can control her temper. I wonder if Swan's words with them, especially regarding using the Source as a weapon, has truly sunk in. I don't think it has for Egwene. Violence is still her first instinct, and I think that's going to continue for some time, and it's that trauma really playing out. Again, really real. That is exactly what I would expect to be happening from someone who has experienced that level of trauma that she went through, that none of the others can really understand. And I'm worried about Egwene and that sort of reaction, but I do think that it has helped Nynaeve realise, along with Swan's words, but seeing Egwene and learning from that, I think Nynaeve has realised that Aes Sedai can use other elements, not just violent ones. And she will still be able to protect herself and those that she cares about. She's a really quick learner, especially given her first time and most of the times she's seen the Source used. And Egwene as well has probably been through sort of Trolloc attacks where Moraine has had to attack or protect and has been quite violent. So their introduction to the Source was very violent. So it doesn't surprise me that both of them, and their initial reaction when they see violence is to turn to a violent response, especially given Egwene's trauma and Nynaeve's desire to protect people. But I do think the more Nynaeve witnesses of other people using the Source in different ways and the subtleties of that, she's going to learn and adapt, and that's going to be, it's going to be beautiful to watch. And she's going to start manipulating it and really being creative with it, because you can already see that she's got this ability to do that. They're in great danger, but again, I think the responsibility of dealing with this danger is actually going to help them connect more with to the world of the Aes Sedai in some way, and teach them in many different ways, and allow them to become more worldly and not just assume that the world is this beautiful place that they're going to be safe all the time. They know that already. They're going to experience that even more so going forward. But also they're going to be a little bit more in control. Egwene maybe, over the course of the book, might be able to gain back some of the control of her situation that she lost in the Great Hunt when she was captured. She has more ability this time round to not let that happen again, I suppose. I assume, heading into the end of this chapter, I assume Nynaeve wants to sit down with Elaine and Egwene and talk about the trial to become accepted so they don't go in unprepared like she did. And I'm assuming that she's not going to tell Elaine about their task that Swan has given them, and yeah, that it's going to be about the trial and not about the secret that they've been told explicitly not to tell Elaine. But again, we will see in the next chapter. So chapter 16, Hunters 3. Gallard and Gawain could very much get in the girls' way as they try to find out where they've been. It could prove really dangerous, especially as Gallard sounds like he'd report everything he learned to the Queen, and that's not going to be in their best interest at this stage. I hope Gawain is who Egwene ends up liking, as Gallard doesn't sit right with me. I can't really expand on that because I don't know much about either of these characters, but everything, we've actually barely seen these two guys so far, but what I have seen, I much prefer Gawain. I think that's normal as well. I don't think I'm abnormal in my desire. If Egwene was to end up liking one or the other, which currently she seems to quite fancy Gallard, I hope that she shifts that. But I mean, I'm not saying she ends up with either of them. I don't know what I think will happen there. She might not end up with anyone. I was surprised Nynaeve told Elaine everything, and so quickly as well. I mean, I just said at the end of I wrote at the end of the last chapter, I don't think she's going to do that. And then she does. I really thought that Egwene was going to be the one to tell Elaine, because I felt that Egwene was just going to do it without thinking it through at all. She still has those very emotional responses, whereas Nynaeve's quite calculated about how she's done this and why she's done it. Egwene would have told because of emotions, so a huge difference in approaches there, and also a huge difference in maybe their maturity levels and the reasons why Nynaeve still tends to treat Egwene a bit like a child, given Nynaeve is still dealing with the trauma just as much as Egwene is of having lost one of the people she feels responsible for at the end, and I mean then saving her, but they're both dealing with stuff. I'm glad Elaine is self-aware enough to know she needs to learn and grow in courage to become queen. She isn't an idiot, which is great. I didn't think she was an idiot, but I think this is probably the first time I'm starting to see her for what maybe she can be and what she can become. Again, I really do hope I get some perspective from her at some point, because I want to know more about it. I feel like, as I've said this before, I'm pretty sure, that we're really only seeing Elaine through Egwene's eyes, and we're seeing it in this really narrow-minded way, and I want to see Elaine. I don't want to see Egwene's version of Elaine. I really do have hope for who she can become though, especially given this trio will be working together. They should be able to help each other with the areas that they struggle with. I think Elaine will also balance out the tensions between Egwene and Nynaeve. Hopefully she doesn't get caught too much in the middle though. Nynaeve's reasoning for telling Elaine makes a whole lot of sense. Plus, Elaine is likely to be in some danger too. I think this is a huge thing. Nynaeve's taken over the responsibility of looking after Elaine as well now too, given their time in the Great Hunt spent just the two of them together. Leandrine would have told others she was part of the events in Falme, so any Black Aja remaining in the tower would be watching Elaine just as much as they would be the other two. So she needed to know about it, if only to keep herself safe. I think there was still that room for her not to get involved if she had said, I don't want to get involved, but thanks for telling me. But I think it makes sense. She needed to know, and Nynaeve did make the right decision, even though I really didn't think she was going to. But that also just, I haven't written this down, but I think that really sets Nynaeve apart from the Aes Sedai in a really big way here. She's told someone information that she didn't need to know. And that is so different to how all of the other Aes Sedai act. They only tell the information that they think people need to know. If it goes back to, if Moraine had thought to tell them more information right from the start, then maybe they would have been slightly safer. I don't know. We don't know whether that would have been the case, but maybe if she'd been more upfront about some noisy cars, but maybe if she'd been more upfront, Matt never would have picked up the dagger. Maybe not, and then the story would have changed. But I think this is setting Nynaeve apart quite significantly from how the Aes Sedai act, and I love it. I think Liandrin's betrayal and the time in farm will help Nynaeve learn over time how to be less of a puppet, how to be less manipulated by the Aes Sedai. And on the other side of things, though, I fear Egwene will learn to be not manipulated. She will learn to be a puppet master, a major manipulator. And that could be a really, I don't know that I like that path for her, but I'll look and I'll see what happens. Given that is probably one of those little spoilers that I know where she's headed, it makes sense. I think this has been a huge part of Egwene's, a huge turning point in her, and she's going to have to be manipulative, I'd say. And then I have a little note, makes me think of the last chapter. So the Grey Man, Nynaeve kept calm during danger. She also warned Egwene about the addictive nature of the violent use of Sadir, which suggests she's working through her own reliance on anger for accessing the source. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. She's obviously noticed it's a weakness and she's going to need to deal with that, so she's working through it. And she's trying to warn Egwene to do the same in her own way. Chapter 17, The Red Sister. This is brilliant. I suspect all Aes Sedai just as Egwene does. And that is great point of view writing in this sense. Robert Jordan did a great job here. All legitimate suspects as well. I absolutely hate to think Sheriam could be Black Aja, but if it was one of the main Aes Sedai we've seen, she is currently the most likely. In my mind anyway. Elada could be, but it feels too obvious. And Varen, I just can't quite work out why Varen would have brought them and the Horn back to Tar Valon if she was of the Black Aja. She could have done, there is numerous ways that she could have got rid of them on the way back and still inserted herself back into the tower, no questions asked. Elada could very well end up being a valuable ally for Elaine. She's invested so much in her already, but her plans have been ruined. She seems more concerned with raising the profile of Aes Sedai than anything else. And she's still working out things about Rand. Will she work out about Matt being Tavern? Her walking in on them has got to remind them to be more careful. They do not have privacy, even in their own rooms. Sheriam's advice is good. On page 184, she says, learn to act meekly when required. She's really telling them they need to learn to behave a certain way, even if it's not how they feel. And she appears to be trying to teach them how to play the game, but also develop hidden strength, which makes me trust her more than her other actions may have. But also I'm still really wary of all of them. It could be any one of them, and it could be none of them. I do think it's one of them at the very least though. I had hoped the girls would heal Matt. I kind of thought that that was where it was leading, that and like it's fine, but I had thought that based on the reaction that had had and the suggestion that maybe they wouldn't heal Matt, that it would lead to the girls attempting a healing and it's showing people how strong they really were, or I don't know, something. I mean, they might still end up healing Matt, but now they'd have an audience if they did that. I really like that we're spending significant time in one location with one character, not bouncing between the characters like in many other fantasy books with multiple point of views. They alternate, so you'll read one chapter over here and then one chapter over here. I really like that we're not getting that. It's easier to get the story flow and to keep up with what's going on. And a little bit of a side note, I've read four of the Game of Thrones books. I know that's not what they're called, but that's what I'm calling them. And I had to stop reading them because the characters, it was jumping around too much. And while I could keep up, what it was doing to me is I was finding myself unable to get back to sleep. I was unable to sleep, and I had to ban myself from reading it unless I was on holidays. And so I haven't gone back to it. I never meant to put it down for as long as I have. It's been a couple of years now. But I just found that when it was jumping around so much and ending most chapters on a cliffhanger, I wasn't coping very well with that at the time. And I'm really glad that this book isn't doing the same thing. And if it does start happening later, I won't be as worried about it because I'm more grounded in the characters. Unlike in Game of Thrones, I never felt that was overly character driven. The characters were great, but it was more plot driven. We were finding out more things about the plot, and new characters were being introduced all the time, which made it sometimes really hard to keep up. Anyway, that was just my experience with that. At some point I do plan on finishing reading those, and we'll see. Chapter 18, Healing. So they weren't involved in the healing, but they've witnessed how much power went into it. Nynaeve says she couldn't have handled half the power, but that suggests that between the three of them, they really could have done it. But they wouldn't have known what they were doing. So that's a really good reason for them not to have done the healing. Nynaeve will have learned from the experience though. She will have picked something up, and hopefully that'll come into play at some point. I don't want anyone to be so close to death, but I'd say that this experience of watching this healing will only have enhanced her ability to heal other people, and that's something that she values. She does value being able to heal people. What happens to the dagger now? I imagine Fane will still want it. It's not like he's going to just let it go. And the Black Aja have shown they can break into the storerooms, so it needs to be kept safe from him and from them. Will it stay part of Matt's story in the long run? The figure from the Eye of the World in the dream, one of the dreams, Matt picked up a figure and gave it away who he was. It suggests that it is part of his character. Whether that part is over now or not, I'll find out, because it's like Matt's figure had the dagger, Perrin's had the wolf characteristics, or the wolf, I don't know. I can't quite remember exactly what it was, but there was that going on. Swan and Varen at least will be suspecting something more about Matt thanks to the use of his use of the old language. I wonder if what he said implies Aes Sedai were involved in the fall of Manetheren. Maybe the Black Aja? Maybe there's definitely more to find out about that, and I'm looking forward to discovering that. I think that'll be really cool. I feel we'll see these tunnels again at some point. And are all healings, just a random question, are all healings done down there, or just the more dangerous ones involving evil daggers? Egwene's going to need some kind of release of the tension she's under. given the PTSD from her capture and treatment in Falm, and now the constant fear of the Black Aja, I worry how this is going to affect Egwene long term, given she's at a key moment in her psychological development as she's still a teenager. As I said, I think she must be 17 at the oldest. Nynaeve and Elaine have a better chance of coping because they weren't captured. And also, I don't know exactly what Elaine's age is, but they're a little... Nynaeve's a bit older, and Elaine has lived in a different world. And neither of them were captured and tortured in the way that Egwene was. So I do think she needs a kind of release. I don't know what that is, but she's really tightly wound. And I'm curious to see what that will be for her, what will help her sort of not calm down, not just blow off a bit of steam, I think. Something needs to happen. Chapter 19, Awakening. And so here we go. We meet Mat. I know we've already met him, but this actually feels like the first time we're meeting him properly. He's smart and able to piece things together. And this is really demonstrated by him not rushing out of the room the minute he wakes up, the minute he gets his bearings. Because I feel that that's what Rand would have done. Mat sits in his room and waits. Or not sits and waits, but he doesn't do anything quickly. He waits and tries to get the lay of the land first. I think this is going to be an important character trait. I really do. Rand would have just got up and left. He wouldn't have liked being caged. I feel that Rand's a little bit more of a he can't be caged. A bit more of a wild animal, a bit more of a dragon, if you will. So he'll need those abilities, that ability to piece things together to work out what's next for him, what's the smartest move forward. It acts as a quick recap of his journey so far, this moment where he's sort of sifting through what he remembers and what he doesn't. There are holes in his memory here and there, but it sounds like those memories are still available to him if he's needing them, if he prompts them. The flashback, I'm assuming that's his past life, the King of Manetheren. I'd assumed Perrin, Mat and Rand were all linked to Luz, and people alive at that same time, so who were all involved in that moment in time. But maybe not. The wheel is potentially less linear than I'd assumed. I kind of figured that it's not linear in the way that we understand history, but I'd kind of figured that if they were reincarnated and all Tavern and all involved, then they must have all been there, but maybe not. Maybe they're all from different times and the patterns weaving in a slightly different way. I don't know. I'm really interested to find out more about that, and the only way I can do that is to keep reading. Do not tell me anything about it. I'm loving that it's this mystery. I am so keen to keep reading to find out, so don't tell me anything about that. Interesting that Mat says both Moraine and Verin had never actually done anything distrustful, other than them being Aes Sedai, which is distrustful in itself. I wonder if any of the Emond's Fielders at all could pinpoint actions that caused distrust in these two, or whether, just like Mat, they've all got that instant distrust just because they're Aes Sedai, which we know that they do. But is there anything else that they've done that makes them question or doubt them more? Other than the withholding information thing. I think that one's a really clear one. They're all withholding information. They're not telling the truth, even though they are telling the truth. So I wonder if any of them can pinpoint anything. Because I can pinpoint some things, but I don't know that any of the Emond's Fielders have noticed those things yet. It appears he'll make a quick recovery, at least in ways. His body might take a while to build strength. He still is drawn to the ruby. Is it the ruby that's going to get him in trouble next? Maybe the dagger is dangerous because of the ruby. Or maybe Mat just really likes the idea of wealth and the ruby is just wealth. like when he was like, he wanted the biggest farm in the Two Rivers area. And last question, which I'm really excited to see unfold, is how is his gambling, like a link to the king, how is that going to play into the story? Is it just a personality thing, or will he actually need to gamble with bigger things than money? Oh, I'm really excited to see that one unfold, and knowing I've finished the rest of this book as well, I think it's fantastic. So the last chapter for today, we've got chapter 20, Visitations. Matt's getting caught between Selene and Swan. I could see these two women battling it out at some point, maybe. I just want someone to battle it out with Selene/Lanfear. Someone will at some point. Especially given it's really Lanfear trying to win the boys to her side one by one. What's her deal? Is she really just wanting to set herself up with Rand as a power couple? Promising Matt glory makes sense, especially for the king, but I don't actually think that that's the best way for this reincarnation, this Matt. He's definitely got some confidence issues in the big scheme of things, same as Rand and Perrin. I love that. Thinking they're each better with the ladies than the other one, thinking that the others are better with the ladies than they are personally. I think that's just a hilarious little fun thing about these three guys, that they compare each other. They've obviously got that competitiveness, and they look up to each other, and I love that, and it's so accurate to how so many relationships really do work. I feel Swan is going to keep a tight but secret rein on Matt. She's given it a bit of thought and knows he'll bolt if he could. She made the choice to heal him, and now will need him for the horn. Will she be the first to work out what his role is, or will no one figure it out until it happens? That is an exciting thing to watch. I wonder if Matt always thought this much, or have the lessons his dad taught him about looking at things from other angles just made sense to him recently. Could go either way. I know that there's been things where I've been told as a kid or as a teenager that haven't made sense at the time, that make more sense later. So some of those lessons that Matt's dad may have taught him may not have sunk in until now, until he really needed them. He's showing more aptitude so far for the Ice or Die game, the politics and the way that they play that great game, than all of the other Emmonsfielders combined. And Tam and his dad came looking for him, and Rand and the others. I love that it's so heartwarming. It's so good for them to know that they haven't been forgotten, that they're wanted and loved. Tam is alive, which is great, and we should see him again soon, I hope. I wonder how much Nynaeve and Egwene will tell him when he sees them finally. I'm not sure what their relationship with Matt is like, other than being exasperated with him often. So again, that's another bit of information I'm really excited to see pan out, how they all relate to each other, especially when Rand's not there. Anyway, there we go. That is the end of my musings on chapter 14 to chapter 20. And I hope that you enjoyed listening to my ramblings. I think this, we're getting a lot of character development in these chapters at the moment, and it's really, really great. A lot of groundwork being done at the moment for what will pay off in the future, whether in this book or in later books. I can only assume. I'm, as always, really, really enjoying it. I'm getting frustrated still, and that won't stop, because they're supposed to frustrate me, because they're people. But I'm also really loving the opportunity to see some of these different characters. I mean, in this slot, I've spoken about Egwene and Matt, about their point of views. And it's really great to see Matt. I know that I've had a lot of Matt hate in the past, and I can see already how quickly that's going to change. I don't know if he'll ever be a favourite, but I don't know yet. But I do think it's been done remarkably well by Robert Jordan to really change that in an instant almost. By the end of that first chapter, the chapter 19, I had a completely different view of Matt to what I had had before, and it all still made sense. Like, it didn't come out of nowhere. It made perfect sense for the Matt that we'd already met, given the darkness and all of those and the ill health. It's not like it's come out of nowhere, which is good, because that would be worrying if we just had this brand new Matt. But it's new and fresh, and he's got a fresh start, and I'm looking forward to exploring that more. I really love his journey, his arc in this book, and what we see of him. And Egwene, I just really, really worry for. She went from being probably in the first half, up until the moment she was captured, she was up there with my favourites. Now I don't know how I'm feeling about her, because I'm really worried about where her character's going to go because of the trauma and because of what's happened to her. So that is intriguing me a lot about her journey. And at some point I'm hoping we'll get some of those other character perspectives, especially Nynaeve and Elaine. I'd like to see more from them, and knowing that might not happen just yet, but at some point I hope we do get to see more from them. And that's really all I wanted to say today. I'm going to film the next video now. I'm currently I'm a little bit overworked at the moment. I have a full-time job. I'm also studying part-time, and my final assignment, my minor thesis, is due at the end of November, and I have a huge event that I'm running for work at the end of November, so I'm doing some extra crazy hours at the moment. So I apologise, as I've said before, I apologise for delays in getting these videos out, but personal life has to happen, and by the end of November or mid-December, if I get that extension, which I'm pretty sure that I'll need for my assignment, I will be back on to a more normal structure for my life, which will be really great. I'm really missing my the time spent reading at the moment. I'm finding I'm really, really far behind with where I want to be with The Shadow Rising. I've only read 1 or 2 chapters of the book so far, and it's good, but I just haven't had the time to sit down and really enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to that at some point in the near future as well. But anyway, that's me done for today. Jump down in the comments, let me know how you're going with the books. Let me know, I don't know, how you're traveling. You're doing well? You're as busy as me at the moment? It's the end of the academic year for us in Australia. We run on a calendar year from about, the academic year is February till November, mid-December. So the end of the school year is also the end of the calendar year, and Christmas and everything all happens at once. So it's busy here. But how are you traveling? Let me know. Do you still feel, or at this stage during the Dragon Reborn, did you have those same feelings about Matt and Egwene? Did you turn as quickly around Matt, like around how you felt about Matt in that instant of him waking up, almost? Not quite instantly, but by the end of that chapter. How did you go with it? Yeah, let me know. I want to hear from you. Like the video, subscribe, share it with your friends, invite other people to join us. And I will film the next video now and have that up for you in the next day or two, depending on when I can edit it. Okay, catch up. Bye.